What happens when a sitting state senator believes his political immunity extends to the laws of basic human decency? What happens when a man who writes the laws decides he is too important to follow them? Senator Marcus Sterling walked into Judge Frank Caprio's courtroom with the kind of swagger that usually requires a red carpet. He didn't just enter, he invaded the space. He adjusted his $3,000 Italian silk tie, checked his gold Rolex, and looked at the crowded benches of the Providence Municipal Court with a sneer of absolute disgust. He believed this was a waste of his time. He believed he would make a phone call, flash a smile, and walk out the back door before the press even knew he was there. But he was wrong. Because sitting in the back of the courtroom, hidden in the shadows of the public gallery, was a witness holding a secret. A secret so explosive, so personal, and so devastating that when it was finally revealed, it didn't just silence the senator. It brought tears to Judge Caprio's eyes and left the entire courtroom gasping for air. The man who thought he ran the state was about to run into a wall of truth he couldn't bribe his way over. And the reaction from Judge Caprio, a man who has seen everything in his 40 years on the bench, is something that will stay with you long after this video ends. Before we witness the downfall of one of the most arrogant politicians to ever step foot in Providence, I have a question for you. Do you believe that those in power should be held to a higher standard than the rest of us? If you believe that justice should be blind to titles, bank accounts, and political connections, hit that subscribe button right now. We are building a community of people who care about truth and accountability, and we want you with us. Less than 10% of the people watching right now are actually subscribed. If you want to see more stories where the powerful get a reality check, join us. Now, let's go to a rainy Tuesday morning in Providence, where the air inside the municipal court is thick with tension. The docket is full today. The benches are packed with people from all walks of life, struggling students, single mothers, elderly veterans, all waiting for their turn to speak to the man known around the world as the compassionate judge. But at 10:15 a.m., the atmosphere shifts. The heavy oak doors swing open and a hush falls over the room. Senator Marcus Sterling enters. He is flanked by two aides who are frantically whispering into cell phones and a high-priced attorney named Richard Vance, known in Rhode Island as the Shark. Sterling is a handsome man in his late 50s, with silver hair perfectly coiffed and a pin of the state flag gleaming on his lapel. But his eyes are cold. He looks at the bailiff, Officer Quinn, and doesn't even nod. He bypasses the check-in desk entirely and marches straight toward the defense table, cutting in front of a young woman holding a crying baby. Judge Caprio, who is in the middle of reviewing a file, looks up over his glasses. He sees the commotion. He sees the entitlement. And he slowly sets his pen down. "Counselor," Judge Caprio says, his voice calm but firm, cutting through the murmurs of the crowd. "We are in the middle of a session. You will wait your turn like everyone else." Richard Vance steps forward, flashing a practiced, oily smile. "Your Honor, good morning. I represent Senator Sterling. We have a very tight schedule today. Legislative session starts at noon, and given the senator's service to the public, we assumed we could expedite this matter." Judge Caprio leans back in his chair. The room is silent. Everyone knows who Sterling is. They've seen his campaign ads. They've seen him on the news promising to clean up the streets. And now they are watching him try to skip the line. "Mr. Vance," Caprio says, "the young mother you just cut in front of has been waiting here since 8 in the morning. She has a job to get to as well. Does her time matter less because she doesn't have a flag pin on her jacket?" Sterling scoffs audibly. It's a sound of pure irritation. He leans over to his lawyer and whispers something loud enough for the microphone to catch. "Fix this, Richard. I'm not sitting here with these people. These people." The words hang in the air like smoke. Judge Caprio's eyes narrow. "Senator Sterling, if you have something to say, you can say it to me. Please take the stand." Sterling adjusts his jacket, buttons it, and walks to the podium. He grips the sides of it as if he's about to give a campaign speech. "Judge Caprio," he begins, his voice booming with a practiced baritone, "I have the utmost respect for this court, of course. But this entire citation is a misunderstanding, a clerical error. I was performing official state duties when this alleged incident occurred. I expect this to be dismissed immediately so I can get back to doing the people's work." The clerk stands up to read the charges. Docket number 44299B. Commonwealth versus Marcus Sterling. Charges: reckless driving, failure to yield to a pedestrian in a crosswalk, and leaving the scene of a property damage accident. The courtroom murmurs. "Leaving the scene? A hit and run? This wasn't just a parking ticket." Judge Caprio opens the file. "Senator, the report here says you were clocked doing 65 in a 35-mile-per-hour zone on Broad Street. You swerved to avoid a bus, hopped the curb, struck a fire hydrant and a parked motorcycle, and then continued driving without stopping. Is that your version of official state duties? Sterling waves his hand dismissively. It was an emergency, Your Honor. A national security matter, frankly, I couldn't stop. My security detail advised me to keep moving, and the damage, I've already had my office send a check to the city. It's paid for, so are we done here? The arrogance is breathtaking. He isn't denying he did it. He's saying it doesn't matter because he paid for it. He treats the courtroom like a drive-through window where he can just pay the bill and drive off. Not quite, Caprio says, his voice dropping an octave. Because there is a victim involved. The owner of the motorcycle you destroyed is Mr. Elias Thorne in the courtroom. From the back row, a figure stands up. He is young, maybe 22 or 23. He's wearing a faded mechanic's jumpsuit with a name patch on the chest that says Elias. He looks tired. His hands are stained with grease that won't scrub off. He holds a motorcycle helmet in one hand, cracked down the middle. I'm here, Your Honor, Elias says softly. His voice shakes slightly. Senator Sterling doesn't even turn around to look at him. He keeps his eyes fixed on the judge, tapping his fingers impatiently on the podium. Please come forward, Mr. Thorne, Caprio says gently. Elias walks up to the other podium. He stands a few feet away from the senator. The contrast is striking. The politician in the $3,000 suit and the mechanic in work clothes. The man who makes the laws and the man who fixes the cars. Mr. Thorne, Caprio asks, tell us what happened on Tuesday. Elias takes a breath. I had just parked my bike, Your Honor. It's a 2015 Kawasaki. I saved up for 3 years to buy it. It's my only way to get to work at the garage on Elmwood. I was walking away from it when I heard a screeching noise. I turned around and saw a black Mercedes sedan flying down the street. It swerved, hit the curb, and plowed right into my bike, knocked it over, crushed the frame against the hydrant. Elias pauses, looking at the senator's back. The car stopped for a second. The window rolled down. I saw the driver look right at me. We made eye contact. I yelled for him to stop, but he just rolled the window up and sped off. Judge Caprio looks at Sterling. Senator, did you stop? Did you check to see if anyone was hurt? Sterling sighs, rolling his eyes toward the ceiling. Your Honor, as I said, I was in a rush. It was a parked vehicle. Nobody was on it. It's just property damage. I have insurance. Look, kid, he says, finally turning to look at Elias with a condescending smirk. I'll have my assistant write you a check for the blue book value of your little scooter. 5,000, 10,000, whatever it is, just take the money and stop wasting the court's time. The courtroom gasps. The disrespect is palpable. Judge Caprio slams his hand on the desk. Senator Sterling, you will address the witness with respect. This is not an auction house. This is a court of law. You destroyed this young man's primary mode of transportation and left him stranded. And now you think you can just throw money at him to make him go away. That's how the world works, Frank, Sterling snaps, dropping the Your Honor. Compensation for damages, I'm a busy man. My time is worth $500 an hour to the taxpayers of this state. This boy fixes mufflers, let's do the math. The silence that follows is deafening. Judge Caprio stares at the senator, his face unreadable but his eyes are burning. Mr. Thorne, Caprio says, turning back to the young mechanic. Is it true, do you just want the money? Elias looks down at his hands, he grips the podium tight. It's not about the money, Your Honor, I can fix another bike. I'm a mechanic, that's what I do. Then what is it about? Caprio asks. Elias looks up, his eyes are watery. He looks at the senator, really looks at him, studying the side of his face. I didn't park there by accident, Your Honor, and he wasn't on that street by accident either. Broad Street isn't on the way to the State House, it's a dead end. Sterling stiffens. For the first time the arrogance cracks, just a hairline fracture. Objection, the lawyer Vance shouts. Relevance, the boy is speculating on the senator's travel routes. Overruled, Caprio says sharply. I want to hear this. Mr. Thorne, why were you there? I was there because I was following him, Elias admits. The crowd murmurs again. Stalking, is this a security threat? Why were you following the senator? Caprio asks, his voice gentle but curious. Because I've been trying to get a meeting with him for 6 months, Elias says. I called his office, I sent emails, I went to his town halls, his staff always kicks me out. They say he doesn't meet with unvetted constituents. So when I saw his car leaving his house this morning, I followed him. I just wanted 5 minutes, I just wanted him to see me. Sterling turns fully toward Elias now, his face red with anger. So you admit it, you were stalking a government official. Your Honor, I want this man arrested immediately. This is a threat to my safety. This is why I didn't stop. I was being chased by a lunatic on a motorcycle. I wasn't chasing you, Elias shouts, his voice cracking. I kept my distance. You crashed because you were driving like a maniac. Why? Caprio interjects, commanding control of the room. Mr. Thorne, why is it so important for you to meet Senator Sterling? Is it about a policy, a grievance? Elias shakes his head. Tears are starting to fall now. He reaches into the pocket of his greasy jumpsuit and pulls out a folded, worn-out piece of paper. It looks like an old photograph. Because of this, Elias whispers, he hands the photo to the bailiff who walks it up to the bench. Judge Caprio takes the photo. He puts on his glasses. He looks at it for a long time. It's a picture from about 22 years ago. It shows a young woman, beautiful and smiling, holding a newborn baby. And standing next to her with his arm around her, smiling a genuine, happy smile, is a younger Marcus Sterling. Judge Caprio looks up from the photo to the senator, then to Elias. The resemblance is undeniable. The same jawline, the same nose, the eyes are identical. Senator, Caprio says, his voice barely a whisper. Do you know who this is? Sterling refuses to look at the photo. He is staring straight ahead, his jaw clenched so hard a muscle is twitching in his cheek. He knows, of course he knows. I don't know what kind of game this is, Sterling hisses. I have no idea who this person is. Liar, Elias yells. That's my mother, Elena Thorne. She died 4 years ago, and you didn't even come to the funeral. You sent flowers with no name on the card. The courtroom erupts. Reporters in the front row are typing furiously on their phones. The senator's lawyer looks like he's about to faint. He tries to grab Sterling's arm, whispering, Senator, we need to leave. Right now, plead the fifth. Anything but Sterling shakes him off. He is cornered. Mr. Thorne, Caprio asks, are you saying? I'm saying he's my father, Elias says, the tears flowing freely now. He left us when I was 2. He went into politics, married a rich woman from Newport and erased us. He paid my mom off to keep quiet for 20 years, but when she got sick, when the cancer got bad, she wanted to see him one last time just to say goodbye. And he wouldn't take the call. Elias turns to the senator, his voice trembling with a lifetime of pain. I didn't want your money for the bike. I don't want your money now. I followed you today because I wanted to ask you why. Why wasn't I good enough? Why wasn't she good enough? You have 3 other kids, right? I see them in the magazines. They go to private schools. They drive cars you bought them. You look so happy with them. I just wanted to know what I did wrong. The silence in the courtroom is heavy, oppressive. It is the silence of 100 hearts breaking at once. Judge Caprio takes off his glasses. He wipes his eyes. He looks at the senator, waiting for a defense, waiting for a denial, waiting for anything human. Senator Sterling slowly turns his head to look at Elias. The room waits. Is he going to apologize? Is he going to hug his son? Sterling looks Elias up and down, taking in the grease-stained clothes, the cheap haircut, the desperation. He sneers. I have no son named Elias, Sterling says coldly. If my past indiscretions have come back to look for a handout, they are sorely mistaken. I suggest you get a DNA test before you slander a public official in open court. Now, Judge, if we are done with this soap opera, how much is the fine for the fire hydrant? The gasp from the audience is audible. It's a collective sound of shock. Even the bailiff looks like he wants to step in. Judge Caprio stares at Sterling. For a moment, he doesn't speak. He just looks at the man. He looks at the emptiness where a soul should be. The judge's face transforms. It goes from professional neutrality to profound, deep sadness and then slowly to a righteous anger. Senator Sterling, Caprio begins, his voice low and dangerous. I have sat on this bench for nearly 40 years. I have seen murderers. I have seen thieves. I have seen people who have made terrible mistakes because of drugs, poverty, or desperation. But in all my years, I have never seen a display of spiritual poverty quite like this. The judge leans forward. You stand there wrapped in your expensive suit, protected by your title, and you think that makes you a man, you think that makes you important. You look at this young boy, a boy who works with his hands, a boy who clearly has a heart 10 times the size of yours, and you call him a past indiscretion. I am stating facts, Sterling interrupts. I am not here for a paternity hearing. I am here for a traffic ticket. You are here, Caprio thunders, cutting him off, because you lack the basic character required to be a member of a civilized society. You hit a vehicle and ran away. That is a crime. But what you are doing to this young man right now, that is a sin, and unfortunately my court only has jurisdiction over the crime. Judge Caprio picks up the file. You want to talk about the law, Senator? Let's talk about the law. You admitted to leaving the scene of an accident. You admitted to reckless driving. And your behavior in this courtroom, your contempt for the process, your contempt for the victim, and your contempt for the truth tells me that a fine is not going to teach you anything. You think you can buy your way out of everything. You think a check solves the problem. The judge turns to the clerk. Enter a finding of guilty on all charges. Fine, Sterling says, pulling out a checkbook. What's the damage? 500, 1,000. Put the checkbook away, Caprio orders. I am not fining you. Sterling pauses. Excuse me. The statute for leaving the scene of an accident involving property damage allows for a fine, Caprio says, reading from the law book. But it also allows for up to 6 months of suspended license and mandatory community service. And frankly, Senator, I think you need to spend some time in the community you claim to represent. You can't suspend my license, Sterling laughs nervously. I'm a senator. I need to drive to the state house. I have immunity for travel to legislative sessions. You are not traveling to a legislative session, Caprio counters. By your own admission, you were on Broad Street, nowhere near the Capitol, fleeing from a young man who just wanted to look his father in the eye. That is not legislative business. That is personal cowardice. The gavel comes down, bam. License suspended for 6 months, Caprio rules. And 100 hours of community service, and I am going to assign that community service specifically. Sterling's face goes pale. You can't do that. I can and I am, Caprio says. There is a veterans clinic on the south side. They need janitorial help. They need someone to sweep the floors and clean the bathrooms. Since you think you are too good to wait in line with these people, you are going to spend 100 hours serving them. Maybe if you spend some time cleaning up after the people who actually fought for that flag on your lapel, you'll learn what respect means. Sterling is sputtering now. This is outrageous. I will have your tenure reviewed. I will have this overturned by noon. You can certainly try, Caprio says calmly. But everything here is on video. And I think the voters might be very interested to see how their senator treats a young mechanic who looks exactly like him. Judge Caprio turns his attention away from the fuming politician and looks at Elias. The young man is still standing there, tears drying on his face, looking stunned. Elias, Caprio says softly, the anger leaves his voice, replaced by a grandfatherly warmth. I want to say something to you. I know you came here today looking for something. You came looking for validation. You wanted him to acknowledge you. You wanted to know if you were good enough. Elias nods, biting his lip. Look at me, son, Caprio says. Do not let this man's reaction define your worth. The fact that you are working hard, making an honest living, and that you had the courage to come here and speak the truth, that makes you twice the man he is. He may be a senator, but he is poor in the things that matter. You. You are rich in dignity. Thank you, Your Honor, Elias whispers. Regarding your motorcycle, Caprio continues. Since the senator refuses to do the right thing voluntarily, I am ordering restitution in the full amount of the damage. The court will enforce that, but Elias. Don't wait for him to be your father. Being a father isn't about biology. It's about love. It's about showing up. And if he couldn't show up for you, that is his loss, not yours. You go on, you live a good life. You honor your mother's memory by being the good man she raised. Can you do that for me? I can, Elias says. He stands a little taller. Good luck to you, son, Caprio says. Case closed. Senator Sterling is still standing there, mouth open, as the bailiff moves toward him to collect his driver's license. Senator, I need your license, Officer Quinn says, stone-faced. This isn't over, Sterling shouts as he throws his license on the table. He storms out of the courtroom, his lawyer trailing behind him, looking defeated. But as he walks down the center aisle, nobody moves out of his way this time. The people in the benches, the mothers, the workers, the students, they stare at him, not with fear and not with respect. They stare at him with pity because they saw the truth. They saw a man who has everything yet has nothing. Elias gathers his helmet. As he turns to leave, a woman in the front row, the mother who Sterling had cut in front of earlier, reaches out and touches his arm. You did good, honey, she says. He's the one who should be ashamed. Elias smiles. It's a small, sad smile, but it's real. He walks out of the courtroom not as a victim, but as a man who finally got his answer, even if it wasn't the one he wanted. Back at the bench, Judge Caprio takes a moment. He doesn't call the next case immediately. He sits there, rubbing his temples. The camera zooms in slightly. You can see the emotion on his face. It's a mixture of exhaustion and disappointment. He leans into the microphone one last time before the break. You know, he says to the room, speaking more to himself than anyone else. We see a lot of things in this court. We see people at their worst, but the saddest thing I see is when people sacrifice their humanity for their ego. A title doesn't make you a leader. A badge doesn't make you a hero. And money doesn't make you a father. We have to be better to each other. We just have to be better. The screen fades to black on that thought. This story spread like wildfire through Providence. Within hours, the local news had picked up the footage. The image of Elias holding that old photograph juxtaposed with Senator Sterling's sneering face was plastered on every screen in the state. But the story didn't end in the courtroom. Remember how Sterling threatened to have the decision overturned by noon? Well, arrogance often blinds people to reality. When he walked out of that courthouse, he wasn't met by his driver. He was met by a wall of cameras. The journalists who had been in the courtroom had tweeted out what happened. The secret was out. Senator, is it true you abandoned your son? Senator. Why did you refuse to pay for the damage? Senator, are you really going to clean toilets at the VA clinic? Sterling tried to push past them, but without his license, he couldn't drive. He had to wait on the curb in the rain for an aide to come pick him up while the crowd watched. And Elias, a GoFundMe page was set up by someone who was in the courtroom that day. The goal was $2,000 to fix his bike. By the next morning, the people of Providence, the people Sterling despised, had raised over $25,000, not just for a bike but to help Elias start his own garage. But the most satisfying part, the community service. 3 weeks later, a photo surfaced on social media. It wasn't a campaign photo. It was a grainy cell phone picture taken by a veteran at the South Side Clinic. It showed former Senator Marcus Sterling, who had been forced to resign by his party due to the scandal, wearing a bright orange vest, holding a mop, cleaning the muddy floor of the waiting room. He looked miserable. He looked humbled. But for the first time in years, he was actually doing something useful for the public. Judge Caprio's courtroom is a place where the law is upheld, yes, but more importantly, it is a place where the truth is stripped bare. You can't hide behind a suit. You can't hide behind a title. When you stand before Frank Caprio, you are just a human being. And if you forget that, he will remind you. What do you think? Did the senator get what he deserved? Should the punishment have been harsher? Or do you think forced humility is the best kind of justice? And what about Elias? It takes incredible courage to confront a parent who abandoned you, especially when that parent is powerful. If you have a story about standing up to someone who thought they were untouchable, share it in the comments below. We read every single one. This story is a reminder that character is what you do when you think no one is watching. Senator Sterling thought he was invisible to the laws of decency. He thought his secret was safe. But in Judge Caprio's court, everything comes to light. If you enjoyed this story of justice served cold, please hit the like button. It helps us get these important stories out to more people. And if you haven't subscribed yet, this is your chance. Join us as we explore the most dramatic, emotional, and inspiring moments from courtrooms around the world. Remember, in a world where you can be anything, be kind. Because you never know who is sitting in the back of the room, watching, waiting, and holding the truth. Until next time, class is dismissed.